How are you, Mr. Carroll?
Hey, Rebecca, thanks. I'm doing very well. Thank you, as always, for keeping us organized and supporting us as well as you do. This is The Pivot, and I want to welcome everyone to this weekly series of informational discussions on our local, regional, and national issues in the midst of and following the current pandemic. This event is presented exclusively by the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. My role as moderator is to introduce our guests, get the discussion started with some questions, and give those attending this event live the opportunity to participate by using the chat or question and answer function, which Rebecca will be monitoring. Thank you for taking the time with your Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce to join fellow members in staying informed to help you care for your team, your clients, and customers, and take care of business in post-pandemic conditions. You know, the real estate market in and around the Lowcountry has been strong for quite some time. As with everything in this world, it has felt the impact of SARS-CoV-2 and the resulting lockdown. Nonetheless, it continues to show signs of resilience, and our two guests today will help us dive into the numbers, as well as the stories illustrating that resilience. Let's meet them and get right into some questions. Our first guest is Jackie Bean. Jackie's real estate career began in marketing, working with Homes and Land magazine for 7 years. From there, she began handling real estate marketing for individual realtors in Mount Pleasant. Jackie started a website and Facebook page called justmountpleasant.com to promote local businesses and events. She received her real estate license just over 2 years ago and joined the Suzy Kopp team at Keller Williams Realty here in Mount Pleasant. Jackie, welcome to The Pivot.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's just such an honor. And like I was saying, to put me up against Mark, who could be president of the world, and here I am with, just over 2 years experience with selling real estate. So, but it is good, especially during this time, to get different perspectives. And, you and John, you and Mark have lived through, you've been in real estate long enough that you've had to deal with shifts. This is, for some people, this is shift number 3 or 4 or 5. So for me, it's shift number 1. So I just appreciate you having me, and I hope that I can give some insight from what it's been like from my perspective.
Glad to have you, Jackie, and we'll talk. There's more to Jackie Bean than may meet the eye. Next is Mark Mitchell. Mark attended Furman University, earning a bachelor's degree in economics while playing on 3 Southern Conference championship football teams. Mark spent 23 years with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, one of the most respected customer service organizations in the world, including 15 years as group vice president. While with Enterprise, Mark managed the negotiating, purchasing, building, and leasing of over 200 locations, uniquely qualifying him for his second career in residential real estate. Mark and his family choose to return to the area after expanding Enterprise's reach throughout the Northeast and Midwest. For the past 15 years, he has sold homes for his clients from the coastal islands, along with assisting over 100 relocating Volvo managers and engineers in purchasing their new homes in the South Carolina Lowcountry. Mark has grown business in all types of economic conditions, most recently taking over management of the Mount Pleasant office for Dunes Properties, where he supervises and supports 17 real estate agents. Mark and his wife, Lisa, also a Dunes agent, have 4 children who were student athletes in East Cooper high schools and are now in college. Mark has been active in the local education arena, serving on the Charleston County School District Superintendent's Parent Advisory Committee and the School Improvement Councils at both Sullivan's Island Elementary and Wando High School. He also serves on the Legislative Committee for the Charleston Area Trident Area Realtors Association. Welcome, Mark, to The Pivot.
Thank you very much. You read really well. You did a great job there. Hey, obviously got a lot of background stuff, but we're real fortunate at Dunes Properties that we've had a nice long brand. We started right before Hugo hit here years ago, almost a little bit over 30 years. So it's we're real fortunate to have a great owner and about 70 agents that really share some important values. I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about it.
Looking forward to that, Mark. Thanks for being with us. Let's get to the questions, shall we, Jackie? With your background and experience in marketing in support of real estate professionals, what do you see as the keys to helping buyers and sellers find the right real estate professional for their individual needs? And how have current pandemic conditions impacted those keys?
One of the things that we at Keller Williams started doing back before everything shut down, so around the end of February, the 1st of March, one of the things, and basically we used the word pivot. I mean, from Gary Keller. So he wrote a book called Shift. Now it's Pivot. And one of the major things that we did was get back to the basics. The way that we help clients hasn't changed. Maybe the format with which we present it or do it has changed, but getting back to basics. And it can be as simple as, one of the things that we did right off the bat was, let's take a look at our budget. Let's see what we can do. But the main thing is you get on the phone and you call people. And basically it's the simplest call you'll ever make. It's, how are you doing? And that's what we started back in March, making those phone calls. Getting as many people on the phone and finding out how they, I mean, if it was 4 hours a day to speak to 20 people, I did it 4 hours a day. And like I said, it was the most basic question in the world is, how are you doing? And that would lead, in some cases, it would lead to, well, what's going on with you, Jackie? How are you doing? What's the real estate market like? And you do have to be on top of those numbers, because one of the biggest questions was, is this going to be the same as 2007, 2008? And basically the answer was no. I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but there's no indications that we've seen in this market that we're going to have another 2008. Basically what you want to think about is we have less than 3 months worth of inventory, less than 4 months. In 2008, it was over 16 months worth of inventory. So even if we had a few more months worth of inventory, it's still not going to get us to that point. So making sure that we stayed positive and got as many people on the phone. If it had to be, we've been Zoomed to death. We know the technology is out there, but meet your client on their level. Some people only want to deal on the telephone. Some people don't want to do a Zoom face-to-face. One of the hardest things for me during all this is getting on camera, because I cannot stand it. It is the worst, but it's like, you gotta get over that. You gotta get with your people. And texting, it can be a big part. Emails are a big part, but there is nothing like a face-to-face conversation or a phone call and stuff like that. And then on top of all of that, you gotta take care of yourself. So I don't have children like Mark, so it was a little bit easier for me to spend my time working from home, where I didn't have to separate my day out. But mainly it's to get back to basics. I mean, I want to be the go-to person. I really do care about people, and I wanted them to know that. And then if they asked the question about real estate, then I would answer. But it was not my main reason for my call.
So that first conversation, that first part of the conversation really had nothing to do with business. You were checking on people you know, people you love, and making sure that they're doing okay.
That's right. And you had to be prepared that the answer wasn't always going to be good.
Right.
I
Yes,
mean,
indeed.
and I've had people, well, I lost my job, or, my mother's sick and I can't visit her. So you had to be prepared for that as well.
Yeah.
But making those care calls is what we called them. And that's what we did. We doubled down. So.
Thanks, Jackie. That's really great insight because, you know, when it comes down to it, it really is relationships. We're in relationships and we work on those constantly. Thank you. Mark, talk about your leadership role with Dunes Properties and how you and those you lead and support have flexed through the current disruption of business and life.
Well, obviously the biggest, the buzzword there was uncertainty. You know, we look back on things right now and it looks a little different when you look backwards. You know, it looks more certain, but when we went through it the last 3 months, I think the number one thing that we all talked about was taking care of each other as a team. Taking care of our customers is obviously very important, but that's not something that we really, as Jackie mentioned, you don't really have to pivot that because you wouldn't be in this business for very long if you didn't take care of customers, listen to customers, care about, you know, the outcomes when we have transactions, but also stay in touch with them afterwards. So Jackie, those are all great ideas, and Keller does a great job with their training, and certainly you're well prepared for what you do with your company. Yeah, leadership role was kind of interesting. You know, the majority of my time, I get a lot of questions, and certainly we were managing uncertainty. I guess we were pretty well positioned. You know, I've been asked a lot about this in the last 2 weeks, how, you know, what made us successful over the last 3 months. And it was, you know, agents that were committed to technology already, the new technologies, things like drone videos, 3D videos, high definition pictures, all the types of things that have evolved over the last few years in our business. If you're really dedicated and committed to using those tools, then the actual nuts and bolts of our business really didn't change. Now, obviously, one part of it did when we started pulling out the masks and the gloves and the antiseptic wipes and all that. But that's all common sense, and a lot of that has to do with, you know, having a good conversation with your clients. But it all started with, you know, one of the big changes I think that we're all adjusting to, both, especially internally, is our meetings. I mean, our Dunes agents, even though we've got over 70 of them, we're all pretty close group. Like here in Mount Pleasant, we've got just under 20 agents, and we're used to meeting every couple of weeks and seeing each other a lot. And obviously, to take care of ourselves and our staff, we work from home like most businesses did. And so we made that commitment real early. And I think we all got a lot better at it. Most people got better at working from home than they thought they did. My adjustment really was having 4 college kids home during this time. So my house was a little different. So I came into the office a little bit more, and nobody else was here. So that worked out pretty well. And then, you know, you add in the use of FaceTime videos, virtual tours, all those things, again, that if you're committed to technology and what's going in our industry, we really didn't have to pivot that much, other than just being committed to the safety of our clients and the safety of our people. You know, some of us in the baby boom generation, you know, we still are getting, I know I'm personally still getting used. I just get a lot out of face-to-face, in-person meetings with people, and that's where I drive a lot of my energy. And so it's a little bit tougher to do that, you know, on the phone or in video or on Zoom calls, but you know, it is what it is, and I'm getting used to it.
Good for you, Mark.
Uh-huh.
I had heard somewhere along the way that somebody was quoted, and I'm still not sure the proper source for this, but somebody is reputed to have said, never waste a good crisis. And this, you know, might qualify in that regard in terms of being able to reinforce the things that you're already been working on, and to maybe introduce some things that hadn't already been going. I'm hearing you say that most of the tools that you needed were pretty much in place technology-wise. I'm guessing there has been occasion for some reassurance and some just listening and empathy, as we heard from Jackie.
Well, definitely, no question. I mean, obviously, we've got customers that are very sensitive to the virus, for instance. And when we talk about what's going on, there's a lot going on. We got the virus, we've got our social issues that I don't know that was part of this, but certainly we again, if you do the right things and you listen to people and you communicate well with people, I think for me personally, and I think most of my team is operating the same way, what got us through these challenging times was just to think, what do I do every day? Once I get my proper habits down, it's just, let's go to work every day and focus on getting the job done. And if it's a little harder, or if it's a little easier, that's really out of our control. That quote that you just kind of gave, I guess I have a different tact on the same one, and that's inside every challenge is a great opportunity. And I guess it's kind of the same thing, but it's a little different way to look at it. You know, the phrase that you gave sounded more like CNN. Never let a good disaster go to waste. But I like that was one of the things that me and a lot of my clients, some of my really good investor clients, have talked about. They call me. I get more calls from some of those folks right now because they know that whenever there's major economic changes in the market, then that's when there are opportunities. And I think if you have that attitude, you get a lot more done and you continue to have a lot more fun, even though we've got challenges, certainly.
Yes, indeed. Mark, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie, back to you. Having worked with hundreds of real estate professionals in your years with the magazine and then immediately afterwards, you've gotten to know many of the firms serving Mount Pleasant and the Low Country. Talk about your choice of joining Suzy Kopp and Keller Williams.
First, let me say never, because I was never going to be a real estate agent. Never, ever, ever, ever. And then one day, my good friend Suzy called me and said, why don't you get your real estate license? You'd be really good at this and come help me. And I know Suzy for a long time. Suzy has great integrity and great ethics, and the company that she worked for matched that. And, you know, I dealt with, like you said, several different companies in the area. And when you're in sales trying to sell to a salesperson, it's not the easiest thing in the world. And some of the real estate offices were more open and welcome to it. If I had, you know, I'm offering you something, let me come in and talk to you. And some agencies were not, and that was fine too. But I knew I knew Keller Williams. I'd worked with a lot of agents at Keller Williams. I had been to some training that they had hosted, because when they do bold or any training in the area, whether you're with Keller Williams or not, you're invited. And I mean, in Training Magazine, I think it is, Training Magazine, they had, Keller Williams was #1 training across any industry. So in 2018, they finally just said, okay, y'all are Hall of Fame. You're out. We're not going to give it to you. You're in the Hall of Fame. So when you're brand new to real estate sales, I knew how to market it, but I'd never done the sales. Having somebody like Suzy, who had been in it for 30 years, I've got Keller Williams and all that training backing me up to give me the support that I needed to go out and do the sales part of it. And it was just a perfect fit for me. Plus, Suzy was working out of the satellite office on Isle of Palms, so I get to come to the Isle of Palms every day, which is not a bad drive. You know, driving over, I get to, you know, see the ocean every day. So it was just a perfect fit for me. And, you know, Suzy and I we're different in a way that she's Northern, and I'm, you know, as you can hear from my accent, am not Northern. So we, you know, we could come for those two different things, but fundamentally we had the same values and ethics, and it was just a good fit for me.
Thanks, Jackie. That's great insight. So Suzy not only invited you to work with her, she invited you to join the profession.
Yes,
and then come to
that's
work.
Right. Again, it's funny because when you say, and I had said it for a long time, no, I'm not, because other people had said, why don't you sell real estate? No, I don't want to. And calls me up on a Sunday night, and, you know, 2 days later I'm in the office and signed up for a real estate course. And I've never looked back. I mean, truly never looked back. So
Thanks, Jackie. I appreciate that.
Opportunity to share, just be with people and care about people and help them, you know, with their goals of home ownership and basically anything else. So it's been a wonderful opportunity for me. I wish I had done it sooner, but there you go.
There you go. Is right. Thanks, Jackie. Mark, after 23 years in corporate America, you're now a leader in a small business that is strong locally, but you've got ties reaching really around the planet, as evidenced by the work in helping relocating executives and engineers with Volvo. What do you consider to be the best part of your job and why?
Well, that's pretty easy, and I'll tell you that in a minute, but I will mention one thing to dovetail what Jackie said. I said the same thing with I had several relocations with my past job and my past career, and I always said, you know, gosh, I'm never going to be a real estate agent as well, buying and selling houses, and even developed a top 10 list of things that I hated about real estate agents while I was going through that policy, through that process. So I kind of keep that in mind when I'm dealing with customers and helping customers now to stay away from those top 10 items. You know, well, my favorite thing is, and I think Jackie would probably say the same thing. The best thing that can happen for you is when the phone rings and you answer the phone and somebody says that, you know, John Smith said I should call you. I'm interested in selling my house because you did a great job, or you and Lisa did a great job on getting their house sold or helping them purchase a home. And so referrals are such an important part of our business, and that's our goal. A lot of times, you know, newer agents get wrapped up in the goal of, you know, getting the house sold or getting a house bought or getting a commission paycheck or whatnot. And if you stay focused on the follow through of making sure that person that you helped would actually refer you and enthusiastically refer you, then that's what it's all about. And if you focus on that, then the money and the professions and the promotions and all those things kind of take care of themselves. You know, and I guess the case in point is the Volvo. You mentioned my Volvo account. That all started about 6 years ago with a friend of mine who called me and said, hey, would you and Lisa be interested in introducing, we've got a group of about 8 or 10 Europeans who are being relocated to Charleston to start up a business. And we had no idea who they were. All they needed us to do were 3 things that are not, if you know anything about real estate agents, they're not exactly lucrative activities. They asked us to help them find a rental property. They asked us to help escort them to a bank to open up a bank account and to help them get a social security number and kind of weave them through the social security process. And so that's how it started. I mean, we started by just taking care of them, and those were the first dozen Swedes and Europeans that were coming here to start building that plant. And so, you know, we never had a written agreement or a contract or anything like that. It just all came down to, we exceeded their expectations, and we created that relationship to where when they started hiring managers and engineers and folks that were going to be here permanently, they mentioned Mark and Lisa Mitchell, and we needed to help, you know, that's who we needed to talk to, or they needed to talk to. And so it's a great success story. And I obviously learned that with my previous company about building relationships and continuing on with relationships. And that's something that we talk about a lot in our office, in our company. And it's important. Again, that Randy Walker, who's the founder of Dunes Properties, the reputation that Dunes Properties has in this market is a very important thing to us. And so hopefully that answers your question.
It does indeed, Mark. Thanks. It really illustrates for me that Volvo is, pun intended, a big believer in test drives, right?
Right,
because
absolutely.
They basically did a test drive with you and Lisa, and they loved they loved the ride, as it were. So it really speaks highly of your intent and your heart for service. So thank you for the insight there. Let's check with Rebecca and see what comments or questions we might have for our guests before we give them an opportunity for a final thought and how they can be reached.
Thank you, John. One of the comments or questions, actually, I guess I have is that I have known a lot of real estate agents through the years, and one comment I've heard them say is before you go into real estate, people need to think about one of the stats is that 87%, I believe, maybe 90% fail within the first 5 years. So what has been your secret to being one of the 10% that has obviously been very successful as a real estate agent? In particular, once you go through your close family and friends, how do you go out and keep that momentum going and reaching more folks? You both touched on it a little bit, but I am curious as to, was that figure daunting to you, that almost 90% fail? And how did you say, I'm not going to be that 90%?
Jackie, you want to answer first, or?
It is very easy, especially when COVID-19 hits and you're sitting at home and everybody's at home, and you could very easily not want to get out of bed. So one of the things that I did, and because you have to understand that what we were doing in March was going to affect whether we were going to have a paycheck 3 months from then or 6 months from then. So, and that's basically COVID or not, that's going to be the issue. And I did touch on it a little bit earlier that if I was in this alone, trying to make it on my own, you're right. I'd have sold 2 houses now and I'd have been done. Or COVID-19 or a shift would hit and I'd have been done. So you do have to rely on your teammates, on your office, on your team leaders, support from family. One of the things that I started doing was every morning before I start work, I write down 5 things that I'm thankful for, because you want to start your day on that note. If you can't find 5 things that you're thankful for, then you probably do need to get back into bed. So I do that, and then that puts me in the right frame of mind, and then I start making my calls and reaching out to people. I mean, anything that I can do for them. But you do need to understand, and it is very difficult for me, or it was difficult for me to know that I cannot do it all. I always want to be that person that does it all. Jackie is able to do it all, but you have to learn to rely on teammates and team leaders and the people that have been in this business and been successful in this business. And the last thing I'd say is practice, practice, practice. If you look at any of the successful people in any business, actors, athletes, you can't expect any of those successful people to go out on a whim without practicing and working that business every day. And that's what we need to do too. I mean, I need to know my numbers. I need to be that go-to person that people would want to go to and ask that question. And without the knowledge and without practicing and working it every day, you're just not going to have that. If you give up, then you will be that 80 or 90% that don't make it. It's just a constant everyday thing.
Thanks, Jackie. Mark, your perspective on that.
Yeah, those are great points, Jackie. You're exactly right. You need help. We can't do it alone. And we have to have great teammates. Another different aspect that I think there's 2 things that really surprise new agents, I think, that are, their first year or 2 when they first get into the business is, number one, it's not as easy as it looks on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent in New York, because they make a lot of money in 30 minutes. It's pretty amazing. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of detail involved, and it's definitely a difficult business. I mean, the toughest part obviously is finding new business and marketing yourself. Certainly it's important. And I think Jackie probably had a pretty good background in that, working at the magazine. But there's just a lot of details that you got to deal with. The other thing is a kind of a switch of frame of mind a little bit. And I call it collaboration versus competition. And I'll throw out another statistic at you that 99% of all homes, all listings are actually sold by a different agent. And so, a lot of times if you listen to a lot of the commercials on the radio and the TV and all that about real estate agents or by real estate agents, it sounds like we're just always at each other's throats and that we're just, competing to the death. And the ones that are really successful, and especially the folks that the agents that have some experience under their belt realize that they need to collaborate. And a great example is if I have a new home that I'm listing for a client, the best thing I can do is get a bunch of agents through that thing as quick as possible. And if I'm the type of agent that doesn't work well with others, then that's going to hurt my ability to sell your house. And so that's an important thing to learn, that there's plenty of business out there in good times and bad. And so we just need to make sure that we're focusing on being successful and not at the risk, sometimes people have, a lot of times newer agents think that the best way that they can represent their own client is to kind of, be confrontational with the other side. And that's opposite is true. So hopefully
Thanks,
that
Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's ask each of you to give us a final thought and let people know where they can find you, please. Mark, let's start with you this time.
Okay, sure. Well, I guess I anticipated a little bit. So again, I think the best quote I heard, I threw it out there earlier on, but the thing that I've tried to keep in mind during these last few months is just, again, understanding when things are really in chaos or there's a lot of change, that's when the greatest opportunity is. And I think that that's important for all of us to remember. And that kind of keeps us with our nose to the grindstone, but also helps us to enjoy, what's important in life. And then the other philosophy that I have in this business that I learned in my early days at Enterprise, when I first moved to Charleston, I opened Enterprise back in 1986. And I was part of the Rotary Club. And one of our first guests, at least in one of my meetings, was a guy named Zig Ziglar. I'm sure we've all heard of Zig, but Zig had a good friend here so he came to Charleston quite often, a lot in the early part of his career. And there's one quote that I live by that he gave early on, and it's that you can get everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And I think if we live by that, that makes a huge difference. And that includes working with others, working with other agents, working with our clients, family, everything. So hopefully that helps. And I'm the broker in charge of our office here on Coleman Boulevard, as far as being able to find me. And my phone number is 843-847-7980. And I'm pretty easy to find. Just Google Mark Mitchell Real Estate or Mark Mitchell at Dunes Properties, and I'm easy to find. So thank you. Appreciate you guys doing this, and thank you for Rebecca for having this event.
Fantastic. Glad to have you, Mark. Jackie, same thing. A final thought, and where can we find you?
I think the best thing to think about is it's at the end of the day, it's really not about me. It's about them. That's silly, but and like Mark said, when somebody calls you and says, Jackie, everybody likes you, everybody wants to work with you, you help so-and-so, please help me. Or other realtors across the nation that have recommended me to people that are moving to the Charleston area. I get humbled every time, every single time. It's not about me. And I promise you, at the end of the day, there's enough business out there, like Mark said, for everybody. If there's 4,000 active listings right now, that's 8,000 deals, essentially. There's enough business. Be kind to one another. Everybody wants the deal to work. Everybody wants to work in the best interest of their client. And just be good to one another.
Thanks, Jackie. Where can we find you?
Keller Williams. We have the Mount Pleasant office off Long Point. I work in our satellite office, which is on the second floor, Island Realty, the 2-story yellow building at the foot of the IOP connector. And it's 843-270-2467. And also keep in mind that, if you do have a Mount Pleasant business that's offering any specials or events, or you just want to promote something and you want some free advertising on my Facebook page, please let me know. I'm happy to do it. It's what it's there for. It's what I started it for.
Will do. Thank you, Jackie Bean, Realtor with the Suzy Kopp team at Keller Williams in Mount Pleasant and Isle of Palms, and Mark Mitchell, Manager with Dunes Properties in Mount Pleasant. Thanks to all of our chamber members with us live and those catching us on the recording. And a big thank you to the Mount Pleasant Chamber's own Rebecca Imholtz for keeping us on track today. From all of us at the Mount Pleasant Chamber, thank you for joining us this week for The Pivot. Make it a great week.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.